I would personally describe Japan as an anti-startup society.
Try and fill out an application for a bank account here in Japan. You're filling out an actual piece of paper, and if you even screw up like one line on that piece of paper, they're going to ask you to redo the whole thing.
What's the biggest difference between hiring local Japanese talent and hiring foreigners?
Hey guys, it's Kay from Asian Boss. Did you know that Japan has one of the lowest rates of entrepreneurship in the world? Starting a business is tough anywhere, but doing it in Japan as a foreigner with limited language skills and a totally different set of cultural rules, that's a whole new level of challenge. Today, we're talking to a group of foreign entrepreneurs who've actually made it work here in Japan. Let's see what they have to say.
Where are you from and how long have you been living in Japan?
So I'm from Paris, France, and I've been living in Japan for exactly 1 year now.
I've been here for about 2 years. Started this company 1 year ago, and now I'm here figuring things out.
Yeah, so I'm originally from the U.S. Recently, I moved from the LA area, and I'm actually pretty new to Japan. I started staying here permanently in maybe June last year, so yeah, maybe like 7 or 8 months.
What kind of business do you run here, and how did it all start?
Okay, yeah, so our business is Banruption. What we do is kind of similar to Patreon, but Web3 focused, and we have some, extra marketing automation features. And yeah, the reason we're in Japan is there's a very vibrant music fan culture here. It's probably the most vibrant in the world if you measured that by per capita. And the thing is, even the most famous music artists, they kind of struggle with monetizing overseas fans in particular. So they have a lot of fans overseas, but they're not. They struggle to organize them into official fan clubs and get them to buy official merchandise and things like that. We're helping close that gap, and that's the biggest reason we're here.
Oh man! So the business I started about 2018. Initially started as a digital marketing agency, and we were doing some consulting work. And on the side, we were doing a lot of things with the gaming companies and making our own games. And then what we discovered is there's a huge problem with game distribution and getting games out to, all the different channels and places that you can get out there. And so we went and pivoted and shifted our company to that in about the past year and a half. And so that's what we've been doing with our platform called Wordle.
I run Reiwa Pharmaceuticals. We're a small startup company here in Shibuya. We're about 5 years old, and we've been developing the first anti-flush products for Japanese people, specifically for people who turn red when they drink alcohol. And we're actually the first company in Japan and in Greater Asia. If you can believe it, there's no companies in any Asian markets making products for people with Asian glow.
So I run a prop tech company. Basically, what we do is we envision Japan as a nomadic stop. For a nomad, you probably need a place to stay, a place to work, or even just kind of find a community. So in our platform, we basically enable all of that, make it easy, given all the hurdles of essentially getting access to an affordable, quality home. And I think Japan really needs this, given that a lot of the rural areas are facing a lot of decline in population, but rich in experience. So we really want to invite foreigners to come out and actually find your own magical moment, wherever it is, and we want to make it happen by expanding outside of Tokyo to everywhere else.
I have two businesses. One is an engineering shop where we make mobile apps and AI models, and the other one is a program that turns employees into founders. So the first one is very simple. I was a senior data scientist, and I've done a lot of work for insurance companies in the US and Canada. And I mainly worked on MVPs, so I decided to make a shop for it and help all kinds of startups and large businesses build concise mobile apps and web applications that have AI components to it. As for the second business, well, after I wanted to leave my company, I applied to 500 places and I didn't get anything. So I said, instead of wasting my time with more applications, why don't I just build a company, which I did, Start Analytics, and leverage that to get a job. And instead of getting a job, I got clients. And so now I teach other people how to do the exact same thing because nobody's getting jobs in North America right now. I think the entire world is having struggles with finding jobs right now. The economy is not well, so we need to kind of think outside the box.
And do you speak Japanese yourself?
I've studied for about 3 months. I have an entry-level understanding and communication ability, but I need to keep going.
And how much did that impact your ability to build your business?
To be fair, working with other Japanese people, for me, they need to be able to speak English because I'm not at that level. However, if you know entry-level Japanese, it kind of shows that you're putting in an effort and it builds this level of rapport. And so that helps build connections, and then you guys can continue the rest of the conversation in English.
If you're watching this thinking, whoa, there's actually a lot of opportunity, I can start a business in Japan too, then learning Japanese is one of the smartest investments you can make. And the best way to start with our sponsor, Preply. Preply gives you access to over 3,000 experienced Japanese tutors and more than 50,000 tutors in total, so you can learn the language you prefer with someone who matches your level, learning style, and goals. Whether you're starting out or want to handle Japanese clients like a native, your lessons are completely personalized. Plus, you can filter by budget, schedule, and focus like conversational Japanese, business language, or JLPT prep. It's way more flexible and affordable than traditional language schools. We've actually partnered with Preply to give you 50% off your first lesson. Just use our exclusive discount code in the description box below and start speaking Japanese today with Preply.
What's one thing you wish you had known before starting a business in Japan?
There's a lot of intermediaries here. Whether it's tax accountants, lawyers, or anything to do one thing, it costs a lot of money as a startup. So that's why it's very hard as a startup to really take off in a more budget-conscious way, especially for a foreigner who doesn't understand the accounting practices here, the regulations, the tax filings, those things. Like it's a very hard process.
Japan is often seen as a tough place to do business, whether that be language, culture, bureaucracy. So what made you want to start a company here anyway?
So if I did the business answer, it would be because, for example, there is less AI companies in Japan, so there is a lot of opportunities. But I feel for most foreign founders here, the real reasons is just they want to live in Japan. And they are going to build the startup in spite of all the difficulties, just because it's like Japan is such a cool place to live in. So that would be the real answer for many other people I know as well. And that's also definitely true for me. Like Tokyo is such a cool place to live in. So that's one of the biggest reasons.
How important is it to have a native Japanese co-founder or business partner when you start a business in Japan?
So I don't have one, but I have a Japanese girlfriend and she can help me with all the translations. So I would say you need somebody who speaks Japanese in your life to help you with your day-to-day.
Some of my co-founders are Japanese. That helps a lot. And yeah, I think right now, Japan might be one of the best places in the world to do a startup. So a lot of like the modern tech startup scenes have kind of grown up around the world, including like Europe, Singapore, US. And Japan is kind of ready right now to go ahead and catch up from that regards. And so, yeah, I think it's a combination of like the sentiment around tech startups and the fact that we're music tech and the music scene here is actually like amazing.
In your view, how open is Japanese society in general to entrepreneurship?
They're definitely open to it in the sense of wanting to have entrepreneurship grow within the society. The government as well as a lot of private entities are trying to channel resources into creating that culture. That said, I feel like startup culture in general is very early stage in Japan. So it's like if you use terms that are very common in startup culture worldwide, the average Japanese person or even most Japanese people have never heard of this word, you know. So I don't know. Example would be like LTV, like lifetime value of a customer on a tech platform. That one might be a little more specific, but yeah, okay, I'll use another one. Venture capitalist or VC. That word, to me, I think most people in the States and you know, in other countries kind of know what that is, or at least they know what it means. But here it's like unheard of, almost. So yeah, so that said, they're ready, they want to do it, they're adapting quickly to the idea of having like this, you know, a vibrant tech startup culture, but it's still, there's an adoption curve just like anywhere else.
Personally, I think there's a openness and there's also a subtle hesitance to entrepreneurship. I think one, it's openly encouraged to take entrepreneurship, take on the challenge, digitize Japan, or use AI to solve the labor problems or anything like that, right? They're even playing with the idea of bringing autonomous vehicles here. Now, what really hurts the entrepreneurs is when reality hits, when there are regulations, when there are hesitancies. Like, for example, our company tries to sponsor some visas, but because of our new nature of our company, we get a lot more questions around that, right? Given that there's a foreigner business management visa, the reality is quite a challenge. I wouldn't say it's impossible. It's a challenge. So really being aware that these curveballs tend to come in because Japan is naturally focused on stable companies, stable businesses, and even the society. Whenever I, kind of say that I'm an entrepreneur, there's mixed feelings about it. Whenever you're trying to work at a startup, how stable is it? Oh, is it going to make money? Is it going to, how long? And really the nature of startup is risky and challenges involved. But essentially, these are some of the societal challenges that I think I personally deal with on a daily basis, where the perception of startup is risky.
For Japanese entrepreneurs here in Japan, getting started is easier, especially if your clients and customers are Japanese. That said, foreigners now have a lot of great support. I mean, we're in Shibuya, and there's the Shibuya startup support office that they have here, and they're helping facilitate a lot of the sort of troublesome areas. For example, like starting the company, making sure you've got the visa, getting you a bank account, which, oh my God, that's like one of the hardest things you can do here. Try and fill out an application for a bank account here in Japan. It's not like something you do online typically. You're filling out an actual piece of paper, and if you even screw up like one line on that piece of paper, they're going to ask you to redo the whole thing. And so, helping you through that process. I mean, it's not like America where you're just like, just scratch it out and fudge it. No, it has to be perfect on the first go.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is where I have to take a turn towards the negative because I would personally describe Japan as an anti-startup society, unfortunately. And I would say both from a legal side and from just a general business side. And I think it's no big secret, right? Japanese companies are traditionally seen as very conservative, and I think the whole system is just not set up to work with startup companies. And I don't think it necessarily has to do with me being a non-Japanese citizen, because I know a lot of Japanese founders, and I hear them saying the exact same thing, right? They're also, it's so hard to work with big companies. Nobody trusts us. No one gives us a chance. And the deeper you get into Japanese business, the more you realize how risk averse it is, how the whole system really is set up for big companies to avoid risk, keep their profits going no matter what. And I think it's tough for startups to find their niche in that very conservative society. So I think from many aspects, it's an unfortunately anti-startup society.
What are the biggest cultural and bureaucratic challenges you faced in the early stages of your business?
Yeah, there we go. Let's get started on that. I do. So when we started the company, I went to the Tokyo One Stop Business Establishment Center. We went to all the places to get help. I get interviews. Said, what's going to happen when I start my company? What's the visa going to be like? What are the requirements? And the message was super rosy. Come on, we're here to help. Come in, don't worry. We love entrepreneurs. We've got lots of support. The banks are going to be great. This is no problem. The visa, no, we got a lawyer right here, right? And I believed it all, right? And I said, okay, this is my dream. I'm going to start my company. And I would say, basically, as soon as the company was founded, starting the company was no problem. But as soon as that was all finished, the problems began, and it all comes back to the visas, right? And it's, if you really want to be someone who runs a company in Japan, right? And we're talking serious stuff here, right? Signing contracts for insurance, signing manufacturing contracts that I do, right? I mean, this is big stuff that we're talking about. And if you want to be someone who does that, you have to have what's called a business manager visa. And unfortunately, that system is just broken to the core. And they even, to make matters worse, starting in October 2022, the Immigration Bureau introduced a new policy which governs all of these startup companies, saying that any startup run by a non-citizen must be profitable within 2 years, or you're not eligible to even have this visa and run a company. And it's like, what's going on here? I mean, what company, especially a pharmaceutical one, is it going to be even in the ballpark of profitable within 2 years? Because our company, Reiwa Pharmaceuticals, is run by a non-citizen, we are not allowed to run the company out of an apartment or a basement or a co-working space. We must have our own office, which, okay, maybe that's fine, but it's another barrier you're putting out there to stop startup founders, whereas most startups are started in a garage, right? And it's in Japan, you cannot start in a garage if you're a non-citizen. You must have a full office. And then how do you even get the office before you start the company, before you have the visa? So it's kind of a catch-22, right? So this is another ridiculous barrier that's just being put up to make it harder for startups.
Way I've actually came across thinking about this is that the Japanese structure is so good and so rigid that they just follow the process. Whereas in America, the process isn't there. So you have to do a lot of critical thinking in order to manage your way through processes that aren't working and problem solving. But because everything in Japan is so figured out, they don't need to. People don't need to think critically as much because it's already laid out. Whereas in America, there's loose rules.
I think you notice that in Japan, when something doesn't fit the mold, then they do struggle with coming up with a creative solution or improvising, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so I'm really curious to how that works with companies and marketing, because in marketing, you have a process, but people will come to you with broad problems. And so for me, I white label a lot of my solutions. So I need to think critically about how to solve those problems individually or for a per company basis. And I'd be really curious to how to implement that process with the Japanese mindset. So I think the funniest example actually is I heard a story about how coffee was introduced into Japan. So coffee isn't really Japanese thing. So 20 years ago, the coffee companies started putting cartoon characters and candies to get the kids integrated with the idea of coffee, so that in 20 years, now they can start promoting coffee. And I think that level of backtracking is so interesting, where in America, you can just come with a new concept and an idea. But in Japan, if it's not fitting their culture, you kind of need to start from the ground up. And the ground up sometimes is making cartoon characters and candy to get coffee integrated into Japan. And now the largest Starbucks is in Tokyo, which is really cool.
There is so many. So for example, when I came here, I wanted to create a corporate bank accounts, and that took way more time than I expected. So we work with the Shibuya government, created something called the Shibuya Startup Support. And this is an organism that really helps us opening bank accounts and stuff like that. So basically they come with us, and if we didn't have these people supporting us, we wouldn't be able to open a bank account as a foreigner. So they just come with us and they explain our situation, and then the banks finally accept our requests. But usually if you don't have anyone with you, I don't feel that it would be even possible. So opening a bank account was really took a long time. And also just talking to potential clients, compared to the way it's done with the US or Europe, everything takes a lot more time. Like, for example, with a Japanese client, you need to build trust. So you need to spend a lot of time. I know another founder who spent 1.5 years with a potential client before finally having a contract. So these kind of things, I think you never hear in France. So you really have to build rapport and build a strong relationship with your prospects, and then you can finally close a deal. So it can take even a year. So that was really surprising for me. I'm so used to just having deals done in 1 month or less. So
what's the biggest difference between hiring local Japanese talent and hiring foreigners?
So I think local Japanese people are still not used to work in early stage startups. because it seems way too risky for a lot of them. So many of them would prefer a more stable job in a more well-known company in Japan. And especially if there is a foreign founder, like that would be too much of a risk for a lot of people. So one of the advice that we got as a foreign founder is we have to look for Japanese misfits, like people who have great skills but don't want to work for big corporations. So they're kind of categorized as misfits, and I was told that we should look more into these kind of people.
Where do you find these type of people?
I'm not sure about that yet. Maybe there is a lot of networking events in English. So definitely if Japanese people feel confident enough to network in English, that's really a type of event where you can meet many interesting Japanese people to work with.
Can you tell us more about your experience and this experience of working in a Japanese company and what that's like?
So working in a Japanese company, and it was a real traditional one, I think it's not for everybody. Let me say that, because I was obsessed with just figuring out about what is the daily Japanese businessman thinking, right? Almost everyone in our company had been there long term, right? Like 20 plus years at least. All the managers were basically working for that company for their whole life. And the way that they built trust within their company was basically by seeing who was willing to stick around and be part of the company for the longest. That was such a weird concept for me, because I never realized. I had always thought that in America it's always a meritocracy. Whoever's working the hardest, whoever's doing the best. But they had such a different approach to it. Who's going to be here the longest? Who can I count on? And I just thought of another interesting point, which was that. So the normal workday was from 8:30 to 5:30 every day. And it was like right in the main office, everyone would kind of be quiet during the day. They wouldn't be working that hard. And as soon as 5:30 hit and the bell would ring, no one would leave right away, right? And maybe like the one of the managers would come in, and everyone, right when that started, you'd suddenly see everyone shift and like start making noise and start working hard and like putting this there and start working. And it was very performative. And I realized that, okay, actually these Japanese people, like, even though they're good businessmen, actually what they're really so interested in their appearance in the office rather than how much work actually goes out. And it really went deeper, and I started to realize the people that the managers liked the best were the people that gave the best appearance in the office rather than who was actually getting the results. And I started to see that same trend in other companies as well, and realized that, wow, like, it's in Japanese business culture, the appearance and your behavior is so key to success. And I think that's why you see Japanese people dressing up very well every day, caring so much about their appearance, going that extra mile to give an extra bow at the door, walking people to the station as part of the business experience. And there was something that really stuck with me. And people would stick around till at least 7 p.m. every day, sometimes even later, just to stay there and show the bosses that they were the most dedicated, right? Even if they didn't have anything to do. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting experience to learn what made them tick.
So in that kind of environment, how do you set yourself apart, or dare I say, do you try to conform, or do you assimilate? What do you do?
Oh man, I was in it to win it, right? I had no reservations. I basically stayed till 7 p.m. every day. Yeah, I just thought, okay, yeah, everyone's staying late. I'm here, right? Part of the team. If I had like a volleyball game or something, I could leave at 5:30, and I did once in a while. But yeah, I would stay late every day, just to like be part of the office and be part of the team.
Foreigners tend to have a bit of more survivalist mindset, given a lot of the societal issues that they would go through here, like visa as a start, right? Or surviving with a language or anything like that. They tend to be open to kind of working very, very, very hard. Now, I think Japanese counterpart, it really depends. I see hardworking Japanese coworkers. At the same time, I see also people who prioritize life. And that's a new trend. That's a trend now. So given that as a startup, where is your priority? Do you need people that need to be just like super focused on growth, super focused on essentially working hard for a company in exchange for equity? Or are you okay having people with a balance? I think those are some things that you have to identify early on, because if you work with people that don't really meet your priorities, it's gonna be really a drag to start a business here.
The labor laws here, like, it's so hard to get rid of people. So you'll see typically for employment contracts, there's like a 6-month probation period where they can get rid of you for any reason. And that is somewhat to like make sure like you don't like mishire somebody and then like you're stuck with them for forever, because once that probation period is over, you are stuck with that. Like it's very, very, very hard to get rid of people, and so that kind of flies in the face of like being able to adapt and change very quickly, and that's part of the needs as a startup. Like, as things happen and the company changes, some people aren't going to be able to keep up and catch up with what you're doing and how you're changing, and you need to have that ability to be able to change staff, and especially if you're going through hard times, you need to start looking at, unfortunately, maybe doing layoffs, restructuring, and it's hard. It makes it much more difficult to be flexible and work on a global stage, where you have these sort of like very rigid, strict protections for the workers here. As a manager, I mean, I know from the other side, it's nice to feel secure, but at the same time, there needs to be a little bit more flexibility for businesses to operate.
And if you had a magic wand to change one thing or perhaps a few things to make it better, what would those be?
Yeah, two things, very simple, right? Please listen to this Japanese government, please, right? One is eliminate the policy that was enacted in October 2022 by the Immigration Bureau that requires all startup companies to be profitable within 2 years. Just eliminate it. Two would be make a policy requiring all banks to not be able to freeze anyone's bank accounts during the government-mandated visa renewal period. That's it. Just stop those two, and it would solve so many problems of entrepreneurs, and then literally anyone could start a company in Japan.
More structural support for entrepreneurs, whether it's tax exemption or free healthcare and pension for startup employees for 1 or 2 years. That would be very helpful because these things cost a lot. Tax accounting or those lawyer fees, like those type of assistance, accessible assistance, and really encouraging the intermediaries as well to really support that as well, because for a startup you're just getting by most of the time, and getting investment, even though there's a lot of investment schemes in here and there, like it's challenging if you are getting the first check. So I would say that, giving it some time to really find some support on those areas would be really something that I would like to see to really flourish the entrepreneur scene here in Japan.